80,000 people rise at once inside MetLife Stadium in New Jersey, hands pressed flat against their chests, and for 2 full minutes nobody speaks. A German tourist from Hamburg films it on his phone and later admits he had to look away because his eyes were stinging. He had come for the football, paid $400 for a ticket to see a match. He had not expected to feel anything at all. That reaction repeats itself across thousands of visitors every summer, and it points to something most Europeans notice only when they stand inside it. Why does the American national anthem land so hard on people who did not grow up with it? That is what this comes down to, and there is one reason near the end that has nothing to do with the music itself. We will count down 7 things that explain the pull, and we start right now with number 7. Number 7. The daily ritual. It is not reserved for special nights. In the United States, the anthem plays before high school football games on a Friday night, before minor league baseball on a Tuesday, before swim meets in towns of 3,000 people nobody has heard of. A visitor from Manchester expects the song at a cup final at Wembley. What surprises him is hearing it before a 9-year-old's game, with parents standing, caps off, on a Wednesday afternoon in a suburban park. In Britain, the equivalent God Save the King appears mostly at coronations, remembrance services in November, and the occasional royal visit. Most Americans hear their anthem 60 or 70 times a year without thinking twice. That repetition builds something. By the time an American is 50, they have stood for that song thousands of times, in school gyms, in stadium car parks, on freezing metal bleachers in October. It stops being a performance and becomes a reflex, and reflexes carry more feeling than ceremonies ever do. It is not that the tune is grander, it is that it is woven into ordinary life. Maybe you have noticed this yourself. When was the last time you heard your own national anthem outside a major sporting final? Before we go further, if this kind of honest comparison is what you come here for, take a second to subscribe. Number 6. A story instead of a person. Listen to the words, and you notice something. The Star Spangled Banner describes a real battle at Fort McHenry in Baltimore in 1814. A flag still standing at dawn after a night of British bombardment, about 25 hours of shelling. It is a scene, told almost like a report from a witness watching through the smoke. God Save the King, by contrast, asks for protection and long life for one individual, the monarch. A retiree from Edinburgh put it plainly once. He said his anthem is a prayer for someone else, someone he will never meet, while the American one is a story about ordinary people surviving a terrible night. That difference matters more than it sounds. When you sing about a shared struggle, everyone in the room can place themselves inside it. When you sing about a king, you are on the outside looking up. Americans are used to a song that says, "We endured," not a song that says, "Protect him." That single shift from a person to an event everyone can claim is why the words feel owned rather than borrowed. It is a small detail, but it changes everything about how the room feels when the music stops. Number 5. The hand on the heart. Watch the crowd, not the singer. The gesture is what unsettles first-time visitors. 80,000 people, strangers to each other, all place a right hand flat over the chest at the exact same moment. A Dutch couple from Rotterdam described it as eerie and moving at the same time, like watching a single enormous body breathe in and out. In most of Europe, there is no fixed gesture at all. People stand, some mumble the words, many simply wait for it to end so the game can start. Americans learn the hand on the heart as small children, in classrooms at 6 years old, reciting the pledge before they even understand the words. So the movement is automatic, and automatic things done by a whole crowd create a strange gravity. It can feel unfamiliar at first, even uncomfortable, to a European who is used to keeping such feelings private and folded away. Then, the discomfort turns into something else. You find your own hand drifting upward before you have decided to move it. That is the moment most visitors say the wall comes down. The next reason is the one people argue about most. Number 4. Pride without apology. Here is where many Europeans quietly disagree with what they are feeling. For decades, open displays of national pride in Britain, Germany, and much of Western Europe have carried a shadow. History made loud patriotism suspect. A single flag in a front garden in England can raise eyebrows and start gossip. In parts of Germany, flying the national flag outside a World Cup year can invite a hard conversation with a neighbor. So visitors arrive carrying that caution. And then they watch Americans wave flags the size of tablecloths with no embarrassment whatsoever, and something in them loosens. This is the first internal contradiction most feel. They came believing that kind of pride was slightly dangerous, and they leave suspecting they had simply been taught to be ashamed of something the Americans treat as ordinary as breathing. It is bigger than any football result. An American hangs the flag on a random porch on the 4th of July and thinks nothing of it. A European notices, judges, and then, uncomfortably, envies. That envy is the crack the whole feeling pours through. Number 3. It outlasts the leader. Ask an American who they were singing for, and they will look genuinely confused. Not the president, not any party. The song was written in 1814 and predates every living politician, and will outlast everyone to come. That is the quiet strength of it. No matter who sits in the White House, no matter how ugly the arguments on cable news get, the anthem points at the country itself and the people in the seats, not the government of the day. Europeans feel this contrast sharply. A visitor from Cardiff said the American song felt loyal to the land and the crowd, while his own felt tied to whoever currently wears the crown. When your symbol is a person, your pride rises and falls with that person's popularity. When your symbol is an idea, endurance, freedom, a flag that survived the night, it holds steady even when politics turns sour and bitter. Americans separate the country from its leaders in a way many Europeans have never learned to do. That separation is why they can be furious at Washington on Monday and weep at the anthem on Saturday. The next one is where the real ache lives. Number 2, they wish they had it. Watch enough visitor reactions and a pattern appears that has nothing to do with America at all. The strongest emotion is not admiration, it is longing. A man from Glasgow, standing among Americans with their hands on their hearts, said out loud, "Why can't we have this?" That question haunts the whole experience. Think about your own experience for a moment. When did you last feel that kind of shared pride in your own country, standing shoulder to shoulder with strangers who felt exactly what you felt? Many visitors realize they cannot remember a single time. They live in older, richer, in many ways gentler societies, with trains that arrive on time and calmer streets and healthcare that does not bankrupt them over one broken leg, and yet they stand in that stadium feeling something is missing back home. That is the second contradiction, and it is a sharp one. The European often believes his way of life is the wiser one, steadier, less naive, and he is often right. But steadiness is not the same as belonging, and for 2 minutes in a loud American stadium, he feels the difference land squarely in his chest. It is not the anthem they want. It is the feeling of being part of something bigger than themselves. And that brings us to the reason that ties every other one together. Number 1, permission to feel. Everything so far, the daily ritual, the shared story, the hand on the heart, the pride without shame, the loyalty to an idea, the quiet longing, points to one thing underneath. The American anthem gives people permission to feel deeply in public and to not be embarrassed by it. That is the part that overwhelms Europeans, and it is not really about America at all. Across much of Britain and Northern Europe, strong open emotion in a crowd is something people have been quietly trained since childhood to hold back. You keep your composure. You do not make a scene. You certainly do not cry in front of strangers over a song. Then a visitor stands in that stadium, surrounded by grown men in their 50s, openly weeping, unashamed, wiping their faces without hiding it, and discovers a door he did not know had been closed. The overwhelming part is not the volume of the music. It is realizing how many years he has gone without letting himself feel that way at all. Americans, whatever else you say about them, have kept alive the right to be moved together in the open without apology. That is what the visitor carries home on the plane. Not a tune he cannot quite hum, but a memory of 2 minutes when he was allowed to belong completely, and the uncomfortable question of why that feeling is so rare in his own life. The anthem is only the trigger. The real thing is permission, and permission is the one export no other country can copy simply by writing a better song. The anthem may only be the trigger, but the permission it grants is the thing that stays with them long after the stadium empties.